I will be king, and you will be queen, though nothing will drive them away. We can beat them. Lucas Zack podcast. We can be heroes on the Lucas and Zack podcast.
That is correct, folks. We're here. We're back. Episode 30 of the show. Final episode of Plain Movie Month. Zack is here.
Hey, baby.
And we have, a reunion of sorts. Many years ago.
I forget this exists.
See, I'm a good host, so I actually have done basic research more than Zack has done in his own life, and know that at one point in the past, Zack Ford hosted a podcast with our guest today, Mr. Robert Parker.
It's true. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Fireside Chit Chat.
Hey, the Fireside Chit Chat.
Today we got Lucas.
100 reviews, and the next week we will bring it back.
Well, bring it back.
For what episode?
Is Fireside Chit Chat still available on Apple Podcasts?
I don't believe it is.
I'm going to find out right now. I'm going to find out.
We're doing research on the air. Let's do it.
I for those who don't know this podcast, that is the proof on why Lucas is in charge of this podcast. Is when you put me in charge. It lasts 5 episodes.
It is not on Apple Podcasts. I'm going to check.
Okay. I'm pretty sure
we hosted it on Podbean.
And I had to pay. Because I cared about it. I put money into it.
Oh, I see.
So
it's not available anymore.
I'm just starting to tell you this. These days we have this thing called Anchor, which is free, and I can put my podcast on like 10 different sites.
Sorry, that didn't exist. Look, we were a little bit of hipsters of podcasts in this community.
Yeah.
That didn't exist when we were around.
We were really aiming for the underground. We're going to be this deep discovery 30 years from now. There's going to be like an 17-year-old telling all their friends, I found this thing called the Fireside Chit Chat podcast. No one knows about school.
It's going to be the Cindy Bears of 2030.
The Cindy
Bears are in 2021. It's going to be the Fireside Chit Chat to 2030.
We're only doing Zack and Robert Lord jokes today.
Yeah.
Did you guys deliver cassette tapes of your podcasts to your various listeners?
No, but I sold them at our concerts. Not our concerts, but other people's concerts. I put them at the merch table.
Can you imagine showing up to I don't care, showing up to a Panic at the Disco concert, and there's old cassettes from Blink 182 or something like that.
I think we just solved independent bookstores. They should just they sell zines. They just sell everybody in town's podcasts on cassette tapes.
It's not a bad idea.
It comes out.
So, for the audience who may not be 100% aware of your podcast, what was the Fireside Chit Chats like?
No one knows. That's why
it's been lost in the mists of time.
I once tried to get Robert talk about the great band, the Dirty Projectors, and then that was the end of our podcast.
And I tried to get Zack to talk about Superman, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zack, not a Superman fan.
Sure.
No, I mean, Zack, we definitely had a discussion about Zack Snyder on one of our podcasts at some point, and it was interesting.
Yeah. We are going to live stream the Justice League Supercut because no one wants to hear anyone's opinion as much as me and Lucas talking about the Justice League.
You guys are the ideal person that I want to hear from about Snyder.
I think experts. We could be considered experts.
We've seen all the DCU movies.
To be an expert, you have to put in 10,000 hours. You guys have watched 10,000 hours of DC movies, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, I just put them on constant stream while I sleep, and I take them in like osmosis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, that's why his son has problems, is that he left him in front of a TV playing BBS.
He showed him Justice League too many times.
If it's just 10,000 hours of Birds of Prey, does that count?
I will watch 10,000 hours of Aquaman.
Would you? That's a lot of hours.
Aquaman is the best DCU movie. It's not.
I agree, but that's a lot of hours.
That movie is so stupid, though. I feel like I could just focus on a different detail every single time and would find it enjoyable. I would just look at the background one time.
You're gonna watch that movie 5,000 times? I don't think so.
Jason Momoa is his background on his computer, and he has it up right now. He's not even looking at the chat. He's just looking at.
It's Jason Momoa from Conan the Barbarian, too. Not even Jason from like Game of Thrones or like Aquaman.
Marcus Nicegold's Conan the Barbarian is good. I like that movie.
His wallpaper is actually just a paparazzi shot of Jason Momoa. shop.
Got a club. Yeah, it's like the Affleck pics where he's just got a bunch of donuts.
He's like wearing a hat.
Yeah.
Respect to Affleck, the man
puffing a cigarette, like.
I'm imagining this, and I'm like, that guy looks cool.
So, we are not the Fireside Chit Chats anymore. Unfortunately.
We're taking over. This is no smoking the Fireside Chit Chat.
I tried to be.
What is something you decided you want to talk about today? That's how the show went.
I want to talk about the last movie that I logged on Letterboxd.
I think Robert Parker should hit us with his last movie. Hit it.
I tell you what, guys, the last movie I logged on Letterboxd was Sully. Oh, that's not the bit. Okay. The last movie I logged on Letterboxd before that was.
You don't get to do that bit though. We've talked about doing that bit like 100 times. We just come on and both of us talk about watching the movie we're talking about.
That'd be so funny.
And then going, okay, well, guess we're moving on to our main movie, and then just start talking about the same movie again.
My last movie I logged was the first Mel Gibson, George Miller Mad Max movie from 1979 or 1980, depending on which country you live in. It's an interesting one. It's like I have a hard time really getting into sort of like sci-fi or dystopian future type movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s because they look like they were made in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I'm sure I'll say that about like 2010s movies in 20 years, but like you can really tell this movie was just like shot in a field in 1979. And there was no like effort to make it look like, you know, there's not even a barren wasteland. Like they go to a random ass house farm at one point, and like it never says when it's supposed to take place, but it's not very dystopian, it's not very future-y. It's like, I said this in my Letterboxd review, but it's like somebody was watching Clockwork Orange while reading Popular Mechanics, and like that's actually how it is. Like there's a gang that's like into super violence and like raping people, and like they're just very strange and led by this sort of like eccentric person who likes touching people's faces, and it's also just like gearhead, and they talk about the types of engines for like 30 minutes. It's very strange. I was not a fan. And also Mel Gibson like isn't at least at this point in his career, I didn't think he was very good in this movie. Like he's there to like look young and rough and tough, but he's like horrible in scenes where he actually has to act.
Yeah, it's a weird movie, especially because I think a lot of people experienced Fury Road first, especially of the younger generations.
Me too, for sure. Yeah.
Then you go back and you watch the original, and it's not flashy and not big. It's not bold. It's not colorful. It's like they basically were just like, Australia kind of looks like a like what the future would look like.
Right. There's lots of sepia tones. Like it's just very strange.
Yeah, it's basically like this looks like Australia kind of looks like Tatooine. Why don't we just make the Mad Max movie like that? And yeah, I kind of agree with you. This movie is kind of it's really forgettable. Like I saw it like a couple years ago, and I don't think I could tell you that much. I do agree that Mel Gibson is, I think, for his entire career, is just inconsistent. Like, there are movies, even in his prime, where he will just show up and you're like, you're not good in this. And I also think that Mad Max as a character is kind of nothing. Like, he's just like, I'm a tough guy. Like, that's kind of the entire character.
Right.
Yeah, and sad about the loss of his family.
Which happens in the last
He's a lone wolf, like, constantly on but it sets up the whole.
Right. It sets up the next two movies, which I haven't watched yet. So, like, maybe he's better in those ones. Maybe the character is something more in those ones.
2 is better.
Okay,
but, like,
I really like Mad Max. Mad Max fucking rules. You guys are crazy. I have it just behind Fury Road on my George Miller rankings, which might be wrong. Because honestly, like, if you ask me which one to put on right now, I would put on the regular Mad Max. I think just it's still weird as shit, but it has a more grounded, earthier quality because of the budget. It's still like it's more believable in a world, like in our world and not a possible future. I like the sparseness of it and the independent, but mainly like Toe Cutter is fucking great. And he's the best villain in this.
He's fucking weird, man.
That's why he's great. And he's better than the what's his face?
The Morton Show.
Yeah, which is the same actor.
No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
It's Hugh Keysburn. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I mean,
You're right.
It's gonna embarrass.
No,
myself.
you're right. You're right. I was thinking of Bruce Spence, who's a different.
Yeah. Anyways, Toe Cutter. I think once again, just because Toe Cutter is a little more steeped in the reality, I know I can have more fun with him rather than seem like a complete imaginary world. I think I have Fury Road higher just because I can appreciate the ambition of it. More than, but if I find Mad Max really enjoyable, and the like cold open chase of it's really exciting and takes you right into it. So you guys are dumb and horrible people, and I'm going to start my own podcast. Fireside Chat Part 2.
I just want to say for the record, Zach just called us terrible, horrible people, but he does not have a movie featuring penguins as his number one George Miller movie, so he's clearly a terrible person.
Hey, you do not eat right, or else I will have my own podcast.
No, it's just the best joke I could make in that moment. Yeah. Also, I don't know. Car chase movies, if your entire movie is built around a car chase, don't interest me.
How dare you say that about The Town?
Town is not built around a car chase.
By the way, my passion for Mad Max is all.
I mean movies that are strictly car chase focused.
I just am not a gearhead or like that. I don't know if that's a derogatory term in 2021. Wait. Yeah, surprise. I know, right? I'm not a guy who turns on American Graffiti every other hour.
Okay. I'm looking up if gearhead is a derogatory term. Let's keep saying it.
I do not believe it is a good idea.
We can't make an episode without accidentally saying a derogatory term.
Yeah, I just don't give a shit about the cars or like.
No, it's gearhead, a person who pursues mechanical or technological interests, as in automobiles or computers. Yeah, don't care.
It's just people who like cars.
Shut up. That's not a protected group in society. People who like cars.
Is that covered by Act 10?
Oh my God, the poor people who like cars are being discriminated against.
People who like cars is code name for stupid people who are bad at school. So yeah, it's
that is not me.
That's way more insulting than
if you got really into taking what is it, shop or body, whatever it's called in high school, it's because you couldn't do good in the other subjects.
I like how Zach just insulted trade schools kind of as a group.
Hey, he's going for a more edgy. I didn't say
you're worse. You're just bad at academics. You're intelligent in a different way.
Sure, and then the next time your house breaks and you need an electrician or a plumber to come fix it, I hope they've heard this part of the podcast and charge you 5 times.
No, I'll tell them, I'm glad you exist. You are objectively better at plumbing than you, and I am objectively better at math than you, and that's just how it is.
So I want to be I want to see the plumber who walks through that door and just starts getting a lecture about it's just the way the world is. I'm objectively better at math than you, dumbass.
Doesn't make me a better person. Smarter does not make you a better person. Just
Robert, over under. What's the percentage chance that Zach gets hit with a wrench if he says that to a plumber?
I'll take the over 40.
Over 40% chance.
What's the over under that I've already been hit with a wrench?
I'll take the under 10.
No, I'm definitely taking the over 50% of that. Zach gets hit himself with a wrench at least once.
We need to have Robert on for a dumbass episode. Not such a serious masterpiece like Sully, but we're not going to be able to take it serious like it deserves.
It's okay. I already, that thing we talked about before shooting, I put it in the outline, so I'm ready now. I found the place for it.
Do you think Sully goes to orgies? Not to
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Thing. Okay.
I do have questions about relationships. We will discuss Sully's relationships to people later on. Zach Ford. Last movie on Letterboxd.
Damn, I'm tired.
Zach Ford, shut up. Last movie on Letterboxd.
Was it Santa Claus is coming to town?
Last week I watched the Letterboxd with Sully. Let's go next. Last week I watched the Letterboxd is Our Friend. Bad title now that I think about it. We can all be friends. Don't claim him. He can be my friend too. Anyways, this is essentially a cancer drama directed by Gabriella Copperthwaite, who directed Blackfish, the documentary. This is, I think, her first dramatic feature. I could be wrong, but anyways, it's based on a Esquire article that a journalist, I'm not going to come up with his name, but that he wrote about his experience with his wife dying by cancer. But it's not really about her or him dealing with cancer. It's more about their friend that came to live with them, and kind of the realization that the troubles and problems you're going through, has broader effects and also affects people outside of that, and you kind of ignore the third person effects of this, and so how it affected that friend's life. The friend is played by Jason Segel, and he makes the movie work. Jason Segel can balance that art of like pure sadness with also just kind of like a delightful soul. That's more or less what he did in How I Met Your Mother. He really brought the soul of that show as well, and he ran emotional beats the best. But he does that in his own work with Forgetting Sarah Marshall that he wrote. This is much more a dramatic thing, but he gets the chance to shine. He's definitely is supposed to be kind of a naturally funny person and character. Like he wants to be a stand-up comic, but he's also playing the loneliness and the heartbreak and the grief that he's also going through of losing his best friend so well. The other people are played by Casey Affleck, and damn it, I really thought I was going to come up with it by the time I said this. There's a couple names I can never remember.
I got you.
Melanie Griffith's daughter's name is what?
She is also in the 5-year engagement. It's a reunion of that. It's Dakota Johnson.
Thank you. I can never remember Dakota Johnson's name for the life of me, and I can look at her face all day and I'll forget it. But
you need to watch more 50 Shades.
Dakota Johnson, who I don't think is very great in this movie, and she always brings it down.
Goes Affleck.
Affleck it's a very Affleck part, like very somber, very downbeat. And Affleck is, despite him, possibly being a problematic person, is one of my favorite actors. I think he's what I like in theater or in movies. I think he can play the grief better than anybody. And he also just has like a classic voice. His voice is really good. But I think he's doing a really solid job. Nothing unexpected with what you're used to. I think it's Jason Segel that shines.
Is there a Dracula musical in this one?
There is.
Then I will watch it.
All Dracula puppets the whole time.
Okay.
I guess it's important.
To clarify your question from earlier, this is her second narrative feature. Megan Levy, the Kate Mara dog military movie.
I saw that movie in theaters.
Which is, it's not brilliant, but it's kind of cute. And who doesn't like dogs being reunited with their owners? I mean,
I do like making these movies that these kind of B-level solid actors get their lead chances. Like, now I'm blanking on her name. Kate Mara. Levy. That Jason Segel does with this. Again, they don't get their chance to shine in the bigger movies all the time. So I'm glad she's making great acting pieces for these people. This is an actor's piece. This is, there's an interesting article in New York Times about like what happens when critics pan a movie that's, part of your life and like a big, like heartbreaking part of your life that the journalist wrote that this life is based on. So it's just interesting, like, because it is getting some negative reviews. I kind of understand because it does, like, the structure of it is so confusing. It's really hard to know where you are. It does jump timelines a lot and it not very smoothly at all. It's very disjointed in that way. So I can understand where some negative reviews come from, but just thinking, I don't think we think enough about when true stories of these horrible times of someone's life gets panned, what that kind of means to these people that they're based on. It's
it's still at 84% right now, so
it's like,
doing all right.
It's like when you're in 8th grade and you write the poem and you think it's a masterpiece of your heart and you let all your things fly and then you get laughed at when you read it in language arts class.
So what was the name of that poem for you, Zach?
I did write a poem about flooding in West Virginia, and it made the school newspaper, and that was the prime of my writing career.
I see. That was the peak.
The peak.
I'm not gonna lie. I totally thought Zach was about to tell a story about how he wrote a poem for a girl.
I thought he was going to. I definitely felt like there's a real story behind that one.
We'll bring back Fireside Chit Chat for a one-time episode where we read off when I really wanted to become like the next Shel Silverstein with my goal, and I was like a teenager. And I have one that is like rhymes with emu, and I was like, emu does not rhyme with female. That's not a word. And that's like the whole fucking poem. So
we should bring that back, and that should be our deepest, darkest secret pod.
Deepest, darkest secret pod.
That should be what it is.
We should do a deepest, darkest secret pod. People have to come on only if they're going to tell us some hot goss.
Yeah, honestly, like, and like, no bullshit, like no like bits. I like genuinely, people have to like share, like open themselves up. We're not having you on, Lucas.
We only have 10 friends. We have to have multiple
I will.
secrets.
I will upload the episode to the Anchor. You guys, we can host it on here if you guys want to do that.
Perfect. Let's do it, Zach. I'm in.
You mean we're gonna host it on the Zario's channel without permission?
Yeah,
well,
fuck
but the Anchor is ours. We don't have to put it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. We should.
We'll make it 3 episodes at least.
Yeah. I do. Casey Affleck has an interesting career because he has like a sort of top 5 2010s performance in Manchester by the Sea, and then he has like after that he does some kind of weird stuff that doesn't always work.
Well, that's also like the fallout from him being problematic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like he's not necessarily working every year or anything like that.
But he works with David Lowery a lot, and that's a great combo. I did like that. This is one of my favorite combos and something before. But
yeah, I mean it is. I mean he is. But like the ghost story is weird.
He's good at it. He's in the under sheet for half of it, but he's
an
great
Oscar winner who did a movie where he's like, I'm gonna wear a sheet and be a ghost for an entire movie. That's weird. I feel like we can acknowledge that.
I think Old Man with a Gun is secretly a top tier Casey Affleck performance. I think he is so soulful for that, and I think a lot of the credit went to Robert Redford for that, who's being Robert Redford. But I think Casey Affleck is carrying the heart and emotion in that movie because he's kind of the outside person looking. He's kind of reevaluating his life based on Robert Redford's character in that movie, and I felt that was deeply felt to me. I think that was like an example of him making something so much more than what was there.
Yes. Although it makes sense that Redford gets the claim for that because he's unreal.
He's the old man, and he has the gun. Casey has like neither old, but he
he doesn't even have the gun.
He's the young. He has a gun. He has a cop.
Yeah, but it's not the young man with the gun.
Did he want a gun? No, I don't think so. That's the point of the movie. I don't know.
Spoilers.
He didn't want a gun. That's the point.
He's a young man that doesn't want the gun. That's a sequel.
I don't think that's the story of that movie, but okay, Zach.
That's the prequel, Zach. Come on.
Okay. We're 23 minutes in and we still haven't gone.
Yeah, Lucas, you gotta. Don't worry. We'll zoom through this. My goal was to be the shortest episode you guys have ever done.
Wait, is that really your goal?
Loki, yeah.
That was legitimately never going to happen.
We're like 10 minutes away from like.
No, we're like 7 minutes away from that.
What's our shortest? Is it Addams Family or is it?
It was Addams Family. I don't think we broke 30 minutes on Addams Family. Last movie I watched or logged on Letterboxd, the same thing, was Run, which is Anish Chaganty's follow-up to Searching, which is currently streaming on Hulu. I love Searching. I think it was my top 10 of the year. Run features Sarah Paulson playing the mother of a child who has a lot of physical ailments, takes a bunch of medication, is in a wheelchair. And, I'm not going to go into spoilers because it's relatively new and everyone who has Hulu can go access it right now. Essentially, the movie starts out as, oh, look at this caring mother, helping her daughter every day with all these problems. And look at the daughter, she's resilient and, kind of figuring out how to live with all these physical ailments. And then, she's getting ready for college. And then basically it takes a turn for the worse. And you start learning that maybe everything that we view on first sight is not what is actually the truth. And it's a really tight, fast-paced thriller, very kind of scary, very horror-ish, but also just really good. I really like this movie. I think more than a lot of people have. It really just it hooked me. I found it scary and engaging and suspenseful and just kind of, it clicked. It does have a little bit of a problem where I think that they do kind of the classic, 7 years later bit at the end that I didn't think need to be part of the movie. Kind of just ended where you ended. I think it's more impactful, but it doesn't hurt the movie enough for me to knock it significantly.
I like the movie enough. Thankfully, we are going to run short of this because this is the part of my memory. I remember having an issue, not with the very ending that you're talking about, but the ending and climax in general. What was my problem? I have no idea. I do not remember why I had an issue with this. I can look up deep, long ago messages with past and never again guess Paul Oyama. But I don't remember what my
shadow banned Paul Oyama.
He shadow banned for the show. But I think he takes kind of a formulaic. I don't want to call it hostage thriller, but that's essentially what it is. But makes it more unique with the kind of wheelchair aspects of it, especially casting a real paraplegic in the role. That supposedly in the reviews I read, she had not a lot to say, but they definitely like heard her voice to build a realistic concept of how she would exist in that house and exist in different situations. And I think it's you feel that in the show. It all seems reasonable for the character and the choices she makes, and they create. He also in the interview he talks about making her climb on the roof of her own house seem like a Mission Impossible sequence, and I find that like pretty successful. Like you do feel such tension in such an intimate action location of her own bedroom.
Yeah, they do a really good job, kind of breaking down the routine that somebody who was actually in a wheelchair would need to go through every day, and kind of they do like a really good setup to kind of explain to you what this person goes through on a daily basis. And it does seem really rooted in reality. They don't try to jump a lot of steps, and I think that's probably due to the fact that they had somebody who's like, yes, I'm actually in a wheelchair. Yes, I do actually need to ride a lift downstairs. Yes, I actually can't go down these stairs without the help of this. Yet, like, it really kind of plays with the constraints, but then also the workarounds that person would have to go through a house. So I think it's pretty successful. Let's continue on to our main film. We've gone 26 minutes on preamble, which is
There's a reason I watched this show at 1.75 speed.
Yeah. Now, that is really rude. I'm barely intelligible at regular speed.
No, you're fine. It's not bad at all.
I gotta be honest,
already talk at 1.7 speed.
Depending on the podcast, I do 1.5 or 2 on basically everything.
So.
You guys are both maniacs. I do audiobooks on 1.2, but podcast I got one.
The only downside of this. The downside of this is if you listen to stuff on 2, everyone sounds super slow.
That's true at normal speed. That's absolutely true.
If you listen to it on 2, you aren't taking it anything
yeah,
less.
I think I miss a lot of stuff when I try to go 2. It depends on the show.
But
you get better at it.
Like I can watch Ranked at 2, but I don't know.
You adapt. I think you adapt to it.
Yeah.
You adapt to it.
Hey,
you adapt to it to the point where listening to it on a slower speed actually, like, you can't do it. You've adapted so well to the faster speed.
I know you guys aren't much music people, but I have a weird fascination with playing records at a faster speed because some of them sound legit better in faster speeds. This will be my solo pod. I'm going to talk about how Cat Power sounds like Erykah Badu if you play her twice as fast.
This is actually how I get through albums you guys try to make me listen to, as I listen to them at 3 speed. It's amazing. You turn an entire album into like a 15-minute experience.
Now, because you're just encouraging people to rush through our podcast, and I think we need to be.
I'm not encouraging.
I think you watch us on half speed, 0.5 speed, take in every syllable I say, and let it have time to sit. And
Zack, no one wants to listen to any of us at half speed. They would literally quit.
I can't listen to anything on half speed.
You can listen to 1.7. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because it's faster, you get through it quicker. That's the
right. The 1.5, everybody talks like this, and I just can't handle it.
It sounds like they're high. 1.7, it doesn't sound like they're humans, and you miss that.
You say that like I enjoy listening to high people talk.
No one wants to listen to high people talk. Everyone talks to high people so you can make fun of them talking like high people.
I don't know. I feel, people think I'm on drugs all the time because I just sound like I'm high anyways.
People think I sound like I'm high anyways.
My kind.
I mean, when we saw each other, you did pull out just the most massive blunt I've ever seen.
Yeah, and we were in the middle of the restaurant.
I was told by sources that will name this that when you guys met, he was carrying a garbage bag full around him.
In illegal state of Wisconsin, I was carrying, I don't know how much pot weighs. I'm going to say 10 pounds. 10 pounds of pot.
Oh, God.
That's a lot. I don't know if you know this. That's a lot. So,
that should be. Can that be your nickname next week? 10 pound.
No,
yeah, 10 pounds of pot.
I asked. I may have coworkers who listen to this podcast. This is all a bit.
Right. This is all a bit for legal reasons. Yeah.
Pounds of pots.
It's very clearly a bit because Zack Ford has clearly no idea about how much drugs anyone buys for during.
No, I think about this fairly often. Like, if I was a drug addict, and I have already like so much anxiety about like calling.
If I was a drug addict, like my coworker. We can't talk about this. My coworkers listen to this. If I was a drug addict,
it sounds like a Shel Silverstein. If I gave a mouse a cookie, if I was a drug addict, the classics.
The thing is, like, I can never be an alcoholic because one, I'm too cheap, and two, it just like takes me a little long time to finish a drink that I never can get too drunk. But I can't be a drug addict because I already have so much anxiety about like calling doctor's appointments to set up like a doctor's and think I have no idea what's happening. And
this
if I
is
don't,
a stand-up bit that you've been working on.
We're talking about going. We have a light bulb that burned out. I'm like, should I go to Ace Hardware to turn it in and recycle it? And then Sarah, my wife, was like, well, I don't. Last time I went, I don't know if they're accepting. I'm like, okay, that means I'm not going unless you call and verify. Because I'm not going in and have them tell me they don't sell light bulbs, and I'm embarrassed forever, and I can never walk in that store. So with all this anxiety I have, anyways, I can't be a drug addict because I don't even know how to find drug dealers or like where do you get their number? How do you say like where do you buy drugs? I have no idea.
Ask people on the street. Just go up to the best dressed person.
Random house, by the shoes with a telephone wire. Go, do you have my drugs? How do you do this?
This is definitely a bit that you've been working on for a long time.
There needs to be more resources of available drug dealers.
You walk up to the best dressed person in the streets of the city that you live in, say, "Hey, you got any drugs?" and just see what happens.
Just like walk around the sign, drugs.
Yeah.
Do you want like drug dealers to be in the phone book or something?
What if I just need my hit, baby?
Jesus. Just go on Facebook Marketplace.
Go on Wish and found the good deals.
Find the good weed deals on Wish.
This is honestly like legalized pot. I'm like, I can do it now. I know where to buy it, but the stores are right across the street. So they legalize heroin. What's stopping me?
Is this your plot summary of Sully?
Have you seen Train Spotting? You don't want to do heroin.
Wait, can you smoke heroin? I feel like that's what, isn't that smoking crack?
You can try.
Can do anything. I'm saying this because I can't inject things because I'm scared of sharp objects, and that's like the one thing I can't watch in movies. By the way, I just realized I've had a hippo on my finger this whole time.
Yeah. Oh. I was gonna ask about it, then you started talking about the drugs. It was all explained.
I can't, Zach. That's a great comedy bit. Robert is right. You should work on it.
That is an excellent bit. I will pay you for it. No,
I was legitimately crying.
But that's a really good. I have so many. How do I call them? How do I find drugs?
It's also the most. It sounds like middle-aged white teacher perspective I've ever heard.
You know. And that now you know I'm no Ryan Gosling and Half Nelson. I'm jealous of his street knowledge. Okay,
you really
Sully involved.
All right, yes, that's right.
This is gonna be the shortest time we ever spend on the main movie, and I'm okay with that.
No, we've definitely had other shows, but we were really bored about the main movie.
Just synopsis of the movie.
Go for it.
This isn't
Zach, tell us.
This isn't going to be the shortest we spent on a movie. It's just going to be a 3-hour podcast. Okay, so Sully, Burger, Meister Burger. He's a pilot. He made a forced water landing. He saved 155 souls and their bodies. I'm assuming they'd specify the souls, but I believe the souls are still inside the bodies. He the plane hit a bunch of birds. We don't talk enough about the birds. I feel really bad for their lives. This movie cares shit about them. The engines go out.
There's slightly more important things to worry about when the birds happen, but
Yeah, he's worried about saving the 155 souls, but what about the 20 souls you murdered with your plane?
I mean, the birds almost murdered 155 people, so I feel like
they didn't specify.
They had Lucas is saying they had it coming. That's what you just heard Lucas say.
Anyway,
they're birds. They have some intelligence. They flew into an engine. I mean, I feel like this is Darwinian fitness at its finest.
This is gonna be a 20-minute plot synopsis. So they hit birds right out the gate. and they're like, we got a problem. They have to contact, the red-haired guy. That's job just like talk them through the solutions. And they're like, can we go here? Nah, that's not going to work. Can we go here? Nah, that's going to work. And he's like, guess what? I think we're out of time. I'm going to have to land in the river, the Hudson River. And he makes a forced water landing. He saves 155 souls. He becomes a hero. He goes on Letterman. Supposedly, Aaron Eckhart tells some really funny jokes, but because he's like, he was really funny. We don't get to see any of this. I want to see him tell some funny jokes on Letterman. That should have been a 20-minute scene. Letterman's talking about like sex jokes with the flight attendants. It was some interesting stuff.
That's a big yikes, but yeah.
Yeah. But Sully's also under investigation by the like insurance company of the like plane maker or whatever, or the
National Transportation Safety Board.
Thank you. Just to see that if he made the right decision, or it did seem like he just wanted to land on the Hudson River. He's like, this would be cool.
I have a point to make about that we can talk about in a minute.
Yeah, because he like brings it up right away. He's like,
immediately. Okay, we'll just do it now. Immediately. He's like, he calls back. He's like, hey, I have an engine out. They're like, okay, well, we'll get you somewhere. He's like, I'm gonna go on the Hudson. Immediately.
Anyway, so that they're investigating whether if he made the right choice or not. You get to watch a lot of flight simulators. Sully Sullenberger does a lot of the like, you don't know what it's like when you're not in the job, which has a lot of modern political implications that I find very problematic. But because let's trust our scientists and let's trust our mathematicians also.
Fun fact: Sully not a fan of this portion of the movie. The actual guy made them take the names off the NTHB officers.
Is this where you wrote the acronym that I had no idea what it meant?
Yeah. We can just
talk about that. Yeah. But anyways, they kind of prove that, when accounting for, human error, that Sully made the best choice he possibly could have. Is the only way that maybe he would have saved their lives. He's a hero, and we love him, and he'll be our guest next week on the episode for I don't know, Eurovision Song Contest. Eurovision Song Contest with Sully Sullenberger, Meisterberger, and Tom Hanks. They're both going to be on.
Ooh, I can't wait to ask Tom Hanks about the questions that we have lined up.
What do you think Sully's take of Yaya Ding Dong is?
I think he's into it.
Yeah. You think Sully watches the real Eurovision and he just like finds his like one he roots for and he like calls friends in Europe to vote for them because he can't? I think Sully's really into Eurovision.
This is an interesting take from backboard.
We'll ask him
Find out next week on the Fireside Chit Chat.
In 2 weeks, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Let's start. Let's start with Robert. Robert, we selected you to be on the Sully episode because we've been trying to get you on for quite a while.
You just knew how much I love this movie.
Actually, it was just the first movie that we done that you'd actually seen, so we were
correct.
Just like,
what are you doing? You're ruining the facade.
We just thought he was most likely of our friends to have been in a plane crash and talk personal experience.
It's probably not far off.
What's your experience like with Sully? When did you see it first?
I was working at the theater with Maggie and Tim both at the time, I think.
Wow.
The three of us all worked together. I think we were all working together when this came out. This came out in 2016? Yeah, sounds right. So I was working at the theater, and I saw basically everything that came out except movies that made me scared. So I didn't watch the scary ones, but everything else I saw.
Scared of dying in a plane crash. This
is not a horror movie. This is like
for some people.
It was not for me. I love traveling. This movie actually made me think about how much I miss flying. I love flying. But yeah, so I saw it in theaters. Had not seen it since until I watched it a couple days ago in prep for this. But I knew I had seen it. I knew I liked it. I remember liking it. I remember just. It's America's Tom Hanks. It's a Tom Hanks movie. It's him being all charming, being a good actor, and I liked Aaron Eckhart because I liked Dark Knight at the time. And yeah, I rewatched it and I still like it. I think still think it's really solid. I think the pace of this movie is actually really solid. Just because like they don't really show what happens in the cabin. Like, it opens with the plane, obviously, but like they don't show it hitting the water until like the 45-minute mark or something like that. It's not a movie that is about necessarily the actions of the crash, right? Like in a different director's hands, in a Roland Emmerich or a Michael Bay or something like that, the crash itself is a 50-minute epic, like with sweeping helicopter shots, and that's just not what this movie's interested in, which I applaud it for.
The movie's interested in the avoidance of the crash, to
where
Right. It is like the calmest plane crash in all movies. Like there's some chaos, but I feel like in some way it's also more realistic in its idea of what a plane crash. They do like emphasize this was 200 seconds. Like this was really quick. So like it wasn't even enough time for everyone to freak out. Everyone was kind of more in shock mode and following the procedures that was being put in place by the flight attendants. They're doing the cover yourself. Up, it was all taken very seriously. It wasn't just like nonsense for like the sake of entertainment and enjoyment. I mean, it's kind of Clint Eastwood. He wants to like make a natural look of terrible situations or disasters. Is kind of what he spent his 2010s on.
And it's not really like, Tom Hanks, he must be like a flawed, conflicted character or something like that. Like, no, like he's a hero. Everybody around him sees him as the hero. Like, there's not really, like, you could call like the advisory board or whatever, like the antagonists, but like the situation is the antagonist and it treats it like that, which I think is good.
I do think this is one of the big critiques I have of the film, is that I think that Eastwood, especially in recent years, has a real problem separating his politics and his worldview from his movies. And this to me is a classic example of it. This movie is incredibly anti-oversight. It treats the oversight board as like evil, closed-minded. Like the attitude they almost give them from the beginning is they want to find Sully guilty. Like rather than presenting them as characters who are attempting to determine what caused the crash, they do present them as characters that are trying to screw Sully. I think this is frustrating for me at times because I feel like Sully did the right thing, and in some ways, because of the way Eastwood frames it, it makes Sully look more incompetent than he actually is, because it frames it as such a black and white between Sully's perfect, these people investigating are evil, and Eastwood is just such a anti-government oversight person that I think this really kind of poisons parts of the movie for me.
I think at least they throw one line their way, which Sully early on says they're just doing their jobs, and you kind of believe from him that he's going to be patient with the process. He's understanding doing jobs, but still a little bit of defensiveness that you're being attacked. I think mainly that antagonism comes as a way to create the conflict of his own self-doubt, which is like the primary conflict he's dealing with is self-doubt and some PTSD, as he's having like dreams of the plane, of it going wrong and him crashing through the buildings of New York, which I find very effective in creating, internal drama that may or may not have been there, the real thing.
Right.
When you are talking about such a noble hero, you have to create some kind of conflict without him being bad. They do that with, the sense of trauma.
Right. Yeah. And they're also like not attacking like his character, like they're attacking his decision making in certain scenes. But like there's the one exchange where they're like, "Hey, when's the last time you had a drink? Do you have any family problems?" And that's like in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie, and they don't bring up like his character for the rest of the movie. So you do get, and because it's obviously told from Sully's perspective, like you do get the sense that they are just doing their jobs, that they're just like grimy insurance people who want to make sure that they're not getting cheated out of money for ruining an airplane. And you can sympathize with that at least a little bit.
I think a lot of the political issues that you read is subtext that maybe we partially create ourselves based on our knowledge of Clint Eastwood's podcast. So it's probably still somewhat intentionally there. But some of what I read into it, especially, I mentioned the kind of concept like you don't know unless you go through it, is an often excuse put, through military decisions, through cop decisions. That we can be critical of, but that their argument is you don't know what it's like unless you're in there. No one can understand what the stress of our jobs are. That kind of like experts, scientists, academics, they know nothing. It's the people doing the physical job is, the real heroes, which is a kind of problematic stance that you can have. But I think that is partially created just by me attaching Eastwood's politics onto it rather than it naturally.
To be fair, both the NTSB had a big problem with this, and basically was highly critical of the film for it, and said basically we're concerned that this portrayal of us is going to prevent oversight and people being willing to undergo oversight in the future. Also, Sullenberger himself specifically asked them to take the names of the officials off of it because he said the portrayal was so inaccurate that it was out of line with what he remembered. He remembered a situation where they were just doing their jobs and investigating, more in line with the line that the character says in the movie, but I don't think in line with the actual portrayal that Eastwood gives.
Right. Which part of that might be Eastwood, like, subconsciously his, personal views. Part of it also just might mean that, like, we need to make this movie an hour and 45 minutes and need to have some kind of cinematic tension. And we can't, we can have 3 scenes of him waking up in a cold sweat because of his dreams of helicopter crashes, but, like, there's only so much that we can do to make this, like, actually an engaging movie to watch.
Yeah, I think he comes off because it's like seems like they're really just trying to like get him,
right?
Try to prove that he was wrong, and I think that also comes from us. Like, we're rooting for Sully, so that's naturally going to root for the people who are trying to say Sully didn't do the right decision. And
Eastwood has stated that Eastwood has stated he thinks that they railroaded Sully. So the political view of Eastwood's opinion of this movie is pretty out there.
Right.
I do think beyond that, I do think there's some interesting stuff done. The format of the movie is kind of interesting. The movie opens with a plane crash, but a plane crash that's part of a nightmare. There is a lot of the flashback nature of the film. In fact, they almost work backwards from investigation and the modern point back to the actual crash, which is kind of interesting. Right. And it's kind of it's somewhat, I think you were right when you talked about it earlier, it's somewhat of a pared down version of what this could have been. This is a really tight 90 minutes. You could have taken this and blown this up way bigger. You could have done so many scenes where, like, you saw the birds earlier, you saw the crew earlier. You could have, I mean, there's a lot of movies where they take 90 seconds of time and they blow it up into a 45-minute movie. And this movie tries, I think, as much as possible to keep that at 208 seconds to be roughly 208 seconds worth of time.
Right. I think that's the movie's credit too. Like, we don't spend, an hour of this movie with, like, the I can't think of the word, the, like, passengers. That's the word I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Like, we see some of them, right? We see, like, the kid and the father and his, friend or his cousin or whatever, and we see, like, the woman with her baby who for some reason just hands him over to this stranger. We see, like, the woman in the wheelchair. So we see these glimpses of people that we, like, empathize with when they are put under stress, but we don't see what their morning was, or how they came to be at this airport at this flight at this time. We see them just as, like, everyday people, and then once the water starts flowing in, we feel for them, but we don't need that backstory. We don't need, hey, what happened to them after they got counted as one of the 155. And like I said, I think that it's to this movie's credit that they don't spend time doing that.
It's characterization through action. Like, I still feel
right.
Like, even though they're in it for 2 minutes, I still feel like they're fleshed out. I understand them as real humans. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes, the way people view movies are like, this has no characters because they don't, know where they grew up, or like
their names, or who they dated in 8th grade, or their deepest, darkest secret, or whatever. Which
is very artificial characterization. But real characterization comes through actions, through personality exhibited. But just seeing enough of them and how they interact with people and how they interact during the crash is enough, as you said, to create empathy for them and to be really effective, because you are concerned. Like, the father and son have 1 minute of screen time on them, but the most affecting moment in this scene is when he finds out he's still alive, and
when he calls him and he's in Jersey.
Because they just reveal enough about that relationship for it to be effective.
Well, it's just like, it's very simple. You kind of just pull on, like, really basic human emotions, human feelings. If you put people that have done nothing wrong in danger, there is kind of a natural human response to feel for those people, and that's kind of what this movie is banking itself on, which is, like, if we put people on a plane and they've done nothing wrong and they're just, like, everyday normal people like the rest of us, and then you throw them into a really dangerous situation, your audience is automatically going to be like, oh, I hope they're okay, because that's just kind of like basic human response to watching a tragedy occur.
You mentioned just an observation during the crash and them evacuating the plane. People were being realistically probably, but real asses to that old woman that could not get out of her fucking road because people are now someone's gonna stop and like let her like help her through, right? But then they're like,
I disagree on this one. I think that was very accurate.
Yeah, that's why I said it is probably realistic. But
I'll be honest. I think everyone wants to think they'd be heroic in a moment like that, and I think if the plane lands and water starts coming in, you're going to get you're getting to an exit as fast as possible. And if I have to go over, under, through people to get there, you're going to get to that exit.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I guess when I do fire drills at school, I like to think I'll be the hero because I do tell my class that we go last. Like we'll go, but we'll let other people go in front of us. Even coming in, which is not safety, but coming in, we go last. Just to create order. Otherwise, I wasn't trying to go at once. Just someone has to take it. Right. And I just hate my kids, and they should be the last ones to survive. I'm joking. My coworkers, I don't believe that, and I don't carry 20 pounds of drugs.
First it was 10, now it's 20. Now I don't know what to think. It was 10.
Wait till the school board gets this episode. We're going to have the real next Clint Eastwood movie.
One of my kids,
Zack getting investigated for the statements he's made on this podcast.
This is why we're never allowed to get popular and why I can't promote the show.
I also just more about I like that because we don't spend all that time with, every passenger and every crewmate. It's really just Sully's story. We just also get smaller moments into who he is. Like if we had spent a bunch more time with that father and son and cousin or whatever, we might not have gotten the scene in the hotel where the manager is just like, all you want is dry cleaning? Like, are you kidding me? Of course. And that's that little request is all you need. I love that scene. Get out of here, Zack.
I think that's so funny. Where everyone is acting like he's the Beatles coming to town because I think the family members would act that way to the captain that saves their family's lives. But these random New Yorkers wanting to give him a hug, it's a little ridiculous.
Part of it also, and maybe this might be a little bit of a stretch, but they reference it in the scene after that when they're talking in the hotel room about changing clothes. Part of it might be that 9/11 looms over this movie, and it's not in your face or anything, but it's definitely there something to think about the whole New York coming together, even in the title cards, or not the title cards, but the text that comes when the movie's over. It's definitely you rah rah New York. That kind of thing. Too.
I just feel there's still a level of this is terrifying to where I can't fully. You still crash the plane, a plane crashed in the Hudson River.
It was forced water landing, not a crash.
You can root for him, but also that's I would just be half scared. I'm not gonna hug him. I have the idea that plane crashes are so much more real. It makes you more terrified to ride a plane than be on it because Sully's on there. It's better if he just made it to the city safely. I do think that I don't want to say this is a problem, but something I think about with Eastwood movies, especially 2010s Eastwood movies, is his infatuation with a specific concept of hero, and how everyone should root for that kind of. It's usually a white male. It's always a white male in these
usually
movies,
a mustache.
Usually a mustache involved, but this kind of hyper masculine protector of all people. Someone saving lives is the people that we need to value most in, our country, which I think is unfair to think of that because someone can land a plane safely means that they should be the most respected people within our country and treated like celebrities.
I mean, that does mean that they just did their job. But also, I really like how he rejects the idea of celebritydom and he rejects the fame. I really like that when they're at the bar or whatever, and he's just watching the thing and he just kind of zones out. Or when he's on the talk show that I can't think of right now. Thank you. When he's on Letterman, he's really stiff and awkward, and when he's doing press and stuff like that. And even when his wife calls him, it's you're at least getting paid for this, right? He's I don't want to be doing this. I don't like this whole press thing. I do like how he sort of rejects that idea instead of embracing it.
I do think a lot of that stuff that works though is Hanks, not Eastwood.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think to go back to 2010's Eastwood, I think there's another thing in this movie that shows up is that Eastwood is a little bit of a sloppy filmmaker. He's famous for taking very few takes. And there's definitely shots you see in this movie where it is with the lesser actors. So the background characters, even the hugging scene where they're just you can tell that this would be a better scene if a different director was directing it because they would let them do 20, 25 takes to try to get it a little bit better. I think a lot of the stuff in this movie works because Hanks is so good as an actor that he can work in an Eastwood movie and just be like, yeah, I'll just do one take and I'll nail it on the one take. But I do think there are scenes with other people where it really does kind of struggle at times. And this is kind of a thing for his entire decade where, like, if it's not the best actors, you do see that there's there's chinks in the Eastwood armor.
You just made me notice what a hypocrite I am, because we spent a whole month talking about how much I love Hanks being the noble hero, and now I'm talking about how Clint Eastwood has this false
ruins it.
Ridiculous view of hero, but now I'm giving full credit to Hanks for making this movie work, because they do both have very similar fascinations to where it's like really unimaginable how it took them this long for them to work together, because they both are fascinated by the noble hero, someone being
mustache noble hero, please.
Mustache noble hero, someone who is very competent at their job and does their job well in a way that is heroic. But I think that's the difference. I think Eastwood is more fascinated in the rescuing aspect of it and the
heroism,
the heroism, the danger aspects of it. As Hanks is more interested, I think, in the competency and more interested in that really moral nobility. The what you were saying with Sully, someone who isn't doing it for the fame or to be the hero, but because it's the right thing to do and it's how they do their job.
Right, like when he's on the
to it,
Sorry. Like when he's on the pier and he's like, "I'm not leaving. If the mayor wants to talk to me, he can get his ass down here. Like, I am waiting until we get a count." Right. And like that's a really great scene that informs character very well. I like genuinely was like getting goosebumps and a little teary when like he was in the hospital and they're like, "We got the count 155," and then you just see the look on Hanks's face and the sigh of relief is just. Like you said, Luke is just an incredible actor and somebody who's very well suited to showcase in this movie.
I do think the difference between Hanks and Eastwood is that Eastwood thinks heroes should be worshipped, and that we should all worship them and ignore flaws, which is, I think, most evident in American Sniper, where he thinks that person should be applauded as a hero, despite the fact that, I'll say it, he's a trash person, a really trash person, and lied about the entire movie. Fun fact. Go read that story. He got sued by by the former governor of Minnesota because he lied about him in his book. But I think the difference is Eastwood thinks heroes should be worshipped. Hanks thinks heroes are heroes because they do their job and then they expect nothing in return.
Right.
Hanks's hero is, I landed this plane because I am a pilot and that is my job. And I stayed on the pier to make sure everyone's safe because I'm a pilot and no one on my flight dies. And then I'll disappear. I don't care. Like, he clearly, and I think you're right, he is so uncomfortable in the spotlight. He is he's one of 5 people on Letterman. He is by far the most uncomfortable person to be there. His co-pilot.
I don't know those flight attendants.
It's because David Letterman is literally like making us like a fucking joke to these who are just sitting on the set. It's like
good segue to our next point.
Yes, Robert would like to talk about something.
No, I'm going to talk about.
Go to orgies?
Yes. So first off, I put it next to this other thing, which is Sully a good hang? I say no. I don't.
Oh wait, I wrote that one.
No, I don't know which one you did. I don't think Sully's a good hang. Because I think he is just I think at like 6 o'clock he's like, I gotta do my job the next morning. I gotta make sure I get that. I don't know if Sully's a good hang.
He's definitely the guy who goes to bed after the 9 o'clock news.
Hey, we are informed that the man likes a beer. Like, and every now and then beer. They don't try to.
He did do a shot of Grey Goose with water. That takes some nuts.
But they asked like, what was that time you drank? And it wasn't like Aaron had card. They could have easily played the like, I'm the straight edge hero, would never do anything. I'm pretty sure thing you said I had like 6 days ago. He'll have a beer. We'll go to the bar.
Right.
Not Jesus Christ. What are you taking notes? What's going on?
Zach Ford accusing people of doing research.
I don't even think at this point I could tell you how many souls he saved. I know it's more than 100.
Well, then maybe you can ask this question, which it's time for Robert's favorite part of the podcast, the Tom Hanks orgy speculation corner.
Oh, Tom Hanks got orgies. We're mixing it up.
We'll answer both. Do you think Sully has participated in COVID-safe orgies, and then also thereafter, do you think Sully has?
I do think the important point here to make is that no, Tom Hanks has not, but Chet Hanks definitely has.
Honestly, hot take. Tom Hanks has. Tom Hanks is one of those like.
I think that's probably true.
And it probably has a wild kinky side.
On the set of Bachelor Party.
Look, we're not shaming as long as things are safe, healthy, and as long as things are safe, healthy, and consensual. You do you. This is a question that we think we needed answered.
I like to think Tom Hanks has found his true love in Rita Wilson. They seem like they're a great marriage. We're going to imagine that is true.
Sure.
He was back on the orgies. Sully, when he was young in the military.
Do you think like 2 weeks after the Hudson landing, when he was like in North Carolina away from Laura Linney?
I think he moves past that. He was a different person. But when they flash back to him doing like a military landing, that was also.
Oh yeah, when his dude's like,
that,
you need to smile more. And he's like, oh, that guy.
After 100%. That.
Did you see that dude smile that night?
He went and looked at the drug dealer / orgy phone book, and he found where all the orgies are going to be held that night.
And he did the rounds. He went to all of them.
This is what happens when you have pre-show meetings and people randomly decide to discuss how you have an orgy in COVID times.
Which, for the record, was not me. I was not the one who brought this up in the first part. And it may seem like it from the outline, but that was not me to begin with.
I do think you just brought up an important question, which is there was a random.
Sully does not participate in the orgies. He goes to the orgies and just checks on their safety protocols and makes sure that they're followed.
I see. He checks the time.
He has and
he's got the itinerary laminated.
They ran it through the orgy simulator and they made all the decisions correctly.
Except they didn't work out because
they didn't account for the 35 seconds of human error.
Human error, is that early ejaculation?
Sure does.
That was the one dude who shouldn't have been invited because he just wasn't up to snuff.
Okay, this is a great show. Everybody have a good night.
Oh, no. We're not done yet. You brought up Laura Linney. We need to talk about Laura Linney because one of the confusing components of this film is the relationship between Tom Hanks and Laura Linney.
Yeah. Because
the movie does not tell us that they are a couple having problems, but every single interaction between the couple tells you that they're a couple having problems. He hangs up on her multiple times.
He's busy.
Like in the middle of.
He's got Letterman to be on.
This is not a dumb problem. This is a fucking movie problem.
I'm not saying it's a problem with them. I'm saying the movie is inconsistent. The movie paints them as a couple, like as like a happy couple, but every interaction with them, and I think it's mostly the screenwriting to blame. Every interaction with them comes off as a couple who is about to get divorced.
Don't you think this is just how Clint Eastwood imagines what a happy marriage looks like?
Well, we saw the mule, so we know what Clint Eastwood thinks of marriage.
Because I didn't read that into it at all. I saw him in a stressful situation, her just miss her husband. I thought it came out more as loving. Like she's so used to his consistency of being at home all the time. They have some days away of him going through something. Because she also seems very caring because she doesn't seem judgmental on these phone calls that he's away. There's no like suspicion of him not wanting to be there. It's all like, you sound like you've had a horrible day. It's something like she says to him. He's acting like so. Like
right. He's in a tough place.
Time. I think they're both having trouble with the moment and the paparazzi.
100%. There's like I actually think it's a really great scene when she like calls him in tears, and she's like, "There are 155 souls, and I just realized that one of them was you." And she's distraught that she almost like lost him. And I think like they have like there's a weird like conversation earlier in the movie about them like not being able to find like a tenant for like a rental property that they own. Like that's kind of weird, but like I think at the core of their relationship it is like very respectful, and I don't think it's like hairs away from falling apart. I just think the like they're a happy couple who may not be attending orgies together, but like they're very content in each other.
I think the conversation sounds super strange. I agree that one emotional bit at the end when she calls him about the 100%. I think that works. Up to that point, I think that it almost could be cut. Most of their conversations could just be cut because I do think it is somewhat confusing. They bring up like random stuff that has nothing to do with the plot, like the whole, property, and like, why are they talking about this in the movie? You don't have to put all the actual conversation that happened in real life into your movie because you could just cut the stuff that's irrelevant and does feel like
most of the wife storylines in any movie could probably be cut because it does seem mostly there to make him just seem like a family man. So you just have more reason to think he's this like great noble human that we can never live up to.
Right.
But I mean, maybe you add more drama to it, so that makes sense.
But like when he calls her and be like at the pier and is like, "I'm safe, I'm okay," and she's like, "What do you like?" When she picks up the phone for the first time, like she's chipper. She's not like, "Oh, I gotta talk to this fucker again." Like it's a peaceful, quiet life. Like I don't know, but you might be right. I might be too optimistic about marriage and.
Oh no, I'm not even saying that their relationship. There's something wrong with the relationship. I'm saying it's the way the movie portrays it. I think is inconsistent at times. I think you're right. The first and the last conversations work, and I think there's a couple of weird ones in the middle where like she's trying to tell him she loves him, and he like hangs up on her, and we're like, and I'm just like, what? It doesn't make any. That doesn't crack with what you're trying to portray. Like there's an inconsistency there.
Every movie they should say "I love you" before they hang up with their phone call, because what if it's the last time they ever spoke to them, and then literally it's almost a plane crash? He's going to regret that he didn't say "I love you" before he died. And so that's the main problem of the movie. But also, Lucas, I think you should come on the future Zack and Robert Deep Dark Secrets podcast and talk about your traumas that lead you to placing these romantic stresses on characters that's like they have a lovely relationship.
We'll help you out, man. It'll be fine.
No.
You don't want to be on that show?
I will produce. I will upload.
What about your what was it? Your shallowest, lightest secret?
That's the second bit. You do your deepest, darkest secret, then your shallowest, lightest secret.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be impressed if anyone actually shares it.
And writing this, then your wishes, your hopes, and your sins. You also have to say.
Yes. We gotta get a good title for this, and then this is a show right here.
Deepest Darkest Secrets with Zack and Robert. The untitled Zack and Robert podcast.
Yeah, coming in fall 2027.
Well, don't put so much time pressure on this, please.
One last thing I do want to talk about is I think it's one thing that I've always found funny in this movie is that Aaron Eckhart has almost exactly the same mustache as Sully.
Yeah.
I don't think I noticed the first time, but this time it was really clear. Is they have like literally the same mustache. It's cut almost. It's like trimmed the exact same.
His is so much thicker. So Lucas used to have this game to see what characters vote for Donald Trump, and I think the new version of this game is what characters storm the Capitol. I think there's a chance that Aaron Eckhart was at the insurrection.
I think there's a chance
based on his mustache. It's just like a hat, like a quarter of an inch thicker than Sully's. That makes him look more like he's really worried about his guns being taken.
Definitely both kids who are like, why are we vacationing? For golf. Like definitely those two kids, 100%. And I'll also posit that the test pilot in the simulations, the male test pilot in the simulations.
Yeah. Even the French people?
Yeah. Major insurrectionists. Yes. 100%.
That's interesting. Robert's accusing the French people of coming over and attacking our capital. It's not 1812 anymore, Robert.
You've been on the internet.
There's 1812 somewhere.
People abroad that are like ready to come here.
Robert just did a terrible military time joke. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was atrocious, but also very good.
That's my most proud joke in this whole show, I think.
That was a good one. Does anyone have any more final thoughts on Sully? Have I ignored things we have not talked about?
Are we doing titles?
I have
we'll do that.
What has been said for the past hour. I do want to point out that I think the repetitiveness of the last half hour, which is like the flight simulators, and then they redo the whole flight again, but that's when they're listening to the cockpit.
When you listen to like the black box.
Witness it again. I think that scene primarily works because they didn't exaggerate it, because they didn't spend so much time on it, that it makes it more reasonable to watch a second time.
Right.
It is, I find, pretty remarkable how that works, because you're just like watching them go through the same simulations like 5 times in a row.
Right.
I think they build enough tension with the stakes of that. And the scenes of watching Hanks and Eckhart kind of react to it and realistically, so somehow it's still engaging and still kind of like like you're like getting excited for this fucking flight simulation, and it crashes in the tower. You're like, oh shit! It's a fucking video game screen.
I really like, especially when we're listening to like their cockpit, because we mentioned it earlier, but he's gonna go into the Hudson immediately, like right away. In the first 5 seconds, is his idea. But the reason I like that scene is because we have already heard it from the operator's perspective, and when he's like calling Jersey and calling LaGuardia, like I like that we've heard it from his perspective, and now we're seeing like the conversation between Eckhart and Hanks. I think that really works. I agree with you. I
mean, a lot of that was still there, but I think just the framing of it, because then they're talking about did they make the right decisions, and did they go through the process, and you got all that back information that you're kind of going into that scene with a different mindset, like you're almost analyzing and judging how they speak to each other, and you're paying really close attention to every word in the action, to where it adds a new level to it, even though it's almost identically the same thing.
Yeah, it works 100%. Because they didn't make us watch a 2-hour 15-minute movie already, where they did a 75-minute long version of the 208 seconds.
I have seen this movie, and I was like, okay, I got to make like 2 hours plus. And I look, I'm like, wait, I forgot. It's like an hour 38, like a perfect movie time.
It's a good runtime.
That's a thing, though. He does not want to spend too much time working on the movies.
Well, neither does his target audience, which is white people who are elderly. Like,
the
people who.
Bad that you like this movie, because I feel a little bad.
This is a big. I bet this is a big matinee Tuesday senior day.
100%.
This sold out.
6 months after American Sniper, too, or a year and 6 months, a year and a half removed from American Sniper, too. Are you kidding me? Like people. That was the same thing. Like that was the same demographic. There's a reason both of these movies. Like I don't remember this one, but American Sniper especially. There's a reason that movie made a stupid amount of money, and I remember this movie doing relatively well too.
Everyone in
4 times its budget. Made 4 times its budget.
Sully?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason this movie made 4 times its budget, because old people want to see Tom Hanks on a cell phone from 2009 running next to Aaron Eckhart through the lights of New York City. Like,
I also think most plane crash movies are fairly successful. Flight was successful. Castaway, hugely successful.
Yep.
Did United
Air Force One
make money?
Probably not. I don't think the old people wanted to go see that one.
I wasn't trying to bring things down. I was just curious.
That's a whole different movie.
So actually, I'm glad you brought up the runtime, because American Sniper is 130 minutes.
Right.
Richard Jewell is 129 minutes. So sitting down to this, I was like, I am at minimum sitting down to a 2-hour movie. And I also forgot it was 90 minutes. And actually, I was kind of happy about that.
This is the only good Clint Eastwood movie this decade. I think you like Richard Jewell more than I do.
I haven't seen
it. I don't like Richard Jewell. Okay. I like Paul Walter Hauser. I hate everything else about that movie.
I don't think he's as great in that either, and I have my problems with that as well. But
yeah, I'm not trying to give him an Oscar. I just think he's quite good in the movie. Let's do Zach's alternate title game. Because I feel like we've talked the movie. We've talked it all we need. Zach Ford, why don't you hit us with some alternate titles to Sully?
This is new game. If you want to come up with a theme song to the game, please send it to our email that Lucas is going to say right now, because we never promote our fucking email.
Lucas and Zach podcast @gmail.com.
Also, you can go to our Twitter called something.
@Lucas and Zach podcast.
I want to take over the Twitter. We'll discuss that later.
I'll give you the information.
I just found out we had one a week ago, but yeah, I want to take it over. I know nothing about Twitter. Okay. Anyways, new game, crazy song called Alternate Titles. Code name, Can Zach read his own handwriting? Let's go. First title, we're going to grade these on a scale from 1 to 154.
Okay.
That's one less soul than what Sully saved, and that's
correct.
Because my first title is 155 souls. Should that be?
That's that.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Okay. What about
because if you call it 155 souls, everyone's going to think it's a faith-based movie.
Is it not a faith-based movie?
No, it's very much not so.
What about Forced Water Landing?
I like that. I'm down.
What about Sully Saves America?
Yes.
It sounds like a cartoon, but fine.
Can I have one. Seatbelts in salt water. That's no.
I like Birds Double Impact.
I really enjoy that you guys are participating in the game, but I'm also fucking pissed at you. Rhythm. My next one, I'm going to go back. Sully Saves America. We all like that. What about Mustaches Save America?
I would just take Mustaches. Mustaches could be the title of this movie.
I mean, now this is a good place to say your ideas. What was your bird joke there that I'm sure was glorious?
His was better than mine.
Birds Double Impact.
Okay, I like that. Yes, let's name it that. What about Sully and Jeffy? Because turns out they were in it all together. He was equally a player. Let's give him some credit. Sully and Jeffy. Jeffy, you're a hero too.
I like that one. I like the Jeffy, you're a hero too. That I
like. Classic line from the end of the movie. It's you, Captain Sullenberger. That's the name of the movie.
I like a play on the Bill Murray movie, so you call it Sully Sullenberg on Hudson.
Oh, that's all I have because the last one I had is Sullenberger Meisterburger, which I've already said 5 times.
What about We Did Our Jobs?
It's a good one.
Well, I like 155 Souls.
Human Error.
Human Error. That could be every movie ever made.
Yeah, it's because it's a terrible and generic title.
The name of my future autobiography.
That's the new Liam Neeson action movie. Human Error.
It's the sequel to Cold Pursuit.
I would watch a sequel to Cold Pursuit just so we're clear.
Yeah, Lucas already talked about how he likes the movie.
It can be Sullenberger Meisterburger, and the tagline is, "We're gonna end up in the Hudson."
Sullenberger Meisterburger, the last toy maker for the Hudson River.
Not bad. I'm honestly shocked they didn't just call it Miracle on the Hudson, which is the title of the book.
What's the name of the book? Yeah.
That's the name of the book. I'm just surprised they didn't do that.
What if they just called it? Oh, man. I'm trying to...
It's like I come prepared with a list, my friends.
Yeah. This is a good bit. You guys should keep that one going.
I have to start writing on index cards. Throw it behind me.
What about running at idle power?
That's not very good for you, running on idle power. The left engine was still idling. Zach, I gotta be honest. As one of your 2 audio listeners, I don't know if the whole note card thing would really work.
Supposedly, that's a humble brag. Lucas said we're up to like.
Question: Are you the one from Bangladesh or the one from India?
Wait, do we really have a listener from Bangladesh?
I'll shoot this.
That has to be a bot,
yeah,
right?
actually, and his name is Sullenberger Meisterburger, so actually you've been quite offensive today.
Do you think Sully listens to our show?
We should send it to him. Do you think he's got a Twitter? What's
Zach,
Sully's Twitter like?
I'm gonna slide into his DMs.
I would assume it's probably just a retweet of his Joe Biden campaign video.
Yeah.
Do you think they should get Sully? They should get Tom Hanks as Sully to beat Joe Biden on SNL.
It's actually not a bad idea.
I could not follow that.
Have Tom Hanks play Joe Biden.
I want Sully
in his Sully costume. In his Sully costume.
I think Sully as Tom Hanks should be on SNL.
Do you think in Tom Hanks's biopic, Sully should play it?
Yeah.
The real Sully.
We talk about how sexy Tom Hanks is with his gray hair, and I think it's the first time we saw him in full gray. And he looks fucking great.
He looks so good.
I think you just broke a brilliant concept, which is that you make a Tom Hanks biopic where Tom Hanks plays himself and he plays all his characters from his previous movies as his character walks through life and meets them.
It's like This Is the End, but about Tom Hanks.
It's literally just Forrest Gump, except Tom Hanks is Forrest Gump.
Oh, it's like Tom Hanks on his deathbed and seeing the ghosts of everyone he's portrayed. He's living his life through his characters. Yeah.
His bachelor party character comes to the room and he kicks him out.
On the school bus.
The guy from the Robert Langdon series comes in.
Oh yeah.
Bursts through the doors. The kid from Big definitely just tries to punch him right away.
All of a sudden, another Tom Hanks appears in not wearing 2 red shoes. He's only wearing 1 red shoe.
The brilliant movie. All big fans of.
It's not horrible.
It's not great.
Hey, we are the resident Tom Hanks experts. We have watched every 1980s Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah, watched. Thank you, Zach.
Did you watch every time I say goodbye?
Yes, I did watch the random movie where Tom Hanks plays a Canadian in the British forces in Israel during World War II.
I thought that was the Sully prequel.
Yeah. It's basically the Sully prequel.
Okay. Let me look up the song lyrics.
That's where it looks up. I think we have talked.
I lost it because I Googled.
You know what, Robert? Final thought. Let's give. Wow, Zach keeps talking. Look up, Google your things in silence, Zach Ford. Robert, we'll give you the final thought. Sully, this movie, sum it up for us.
Overall, I'm gonna give Sully. What rating? I didn't think about this. I'm gonna give him 2 mustaches. The 2 mustache rating for old Sully Sullenberger. That's not actually his first and last name, by the way. I didn't realize that until like the hearings at the end that his first name was like Chelsea or something like that, or Chesley. Chesley. Yeah, there's a reason he goes by Sully. Overall, a good one. Fun to watch. It's a tight movie. I'm a fan of movies whose stories and runtimes are tight. This is a tight film.
Bring back the 90-minute movie.
Yeah. I once heard a quote, I don't even remember who it was from, but it's like it was like a warning to all filmmakers. It was any movie that's between 90 minutes and 150 minutes, so 2.5 hours. Any movie between 90 and 150 minutes is an act of cowardice. And I think that I think in some situations that holds. Bring back the 89-minute movie. That's what I'm falling.
I'm down with this. Fun fact, Run, which you talked about at the beginning, 89 minutes long.
Yeah, I knew that. That's called full circle, my friends.
Just 1 more minute and you're a tight 90. Maybe throwing one more scene.
Nope, 89 is 69 plus 20, and that's what our podcast deserves.
It's also like 80 plus 9. What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
It was a nonsensical math problem. What do you think it was? All right. Well,
I'm bad at math. You should be a plumber.
Back to Zack Ford insulting plumbers. Plumbers have a lot of things that they can hit you with. Just be careful. It's a lot of weapons that plumbers can.
Homeowner, I'm really gonna need that plumber because I have no idea what to do.
It's fun fact. No one knows what to do when their plumbing goes wrong.
Yeah.
We have finished our discussion of Sully. I would like to thank Robert for coming on and talking about Sully.
Thank you for having me.
And 19 other topics that we probably spent more time talking than Sully.
Hey, but you laughed.
It was a fun podcast.
Don't forget to thank Sully as well for saving us.
Yeah, thank you, Captain Sully.
Captain Sully, a legend.
I give you a big old hug for letting me do your dry cleaning, Sully.
God, you wouldn't do that man's dry cleaning?
I do the dry cleaning. I'm not going to hug him in the hallway.
I feel like if you would ask me to do his dry cleaning, I would still roll my eyes. Like I know I'm going to do my job, but do I have to do it? Like, you can do your own dry cleaning.
This needy motherfucker. Like,
yeah, you're like, can you? I was hoping you'd ask me for something I could just call somebody else to do, to do it myself.
Dry cleaning? Yeah, hold up. I'll bring up one of my peons. I'll make them do it for me.
We're doing a real grandma goodbye right now. We're going to end the show and then we hang out for 10 more minutes.
Well, because you keep interrupting me, Zach. I would like to thank Robert and tell him we'd love to have him back. He was awesome.
I'd love to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, we will have to find another
movie I've watched.
We do have one. Zach, don't say it. Well, we do have one in the future for you.
Okay.
We will discuss this after the show. For now, thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week. We start 2020 movies. Ooh, big fun.
They did come out, whether you believe it or not.
They did come out. There are actually a lot of movies out there. Check your streaming services. A lot of stuff's available. We will be talking Eurovision, the movie that when you initially see it, you think that's another piece of Will Ferrell trash. And guess what? It's pretty good. It's really fun.
You mean it's a great movie, and I only listen to Ya Ding Dong.
Zack Ford has a ridiculously high rating on this film. But I
it may or may not be talked about twice next month because it will also be in my top 10.
Don't think so. But We'll see you next week when we do that. And with that being said, Zach Ford, why don't you sing us out?
Yeah, I have a very important question for you. Would you dance if I asked you to dance? Would you run and never look back? Would you cry if you saw me crying? Would you save my soul tonight? I can be your hero, Sully. I can kiss away your pain. I'll stand by you forever. Lucas and Zack podcast. 'Cause you can't take my breath away.